Thank you very much. So today is me, Stefan Repin, but it's not about me today. Today it's about the one guest we have. We'll start with Dan here. So Dan is the CEO of Brandcast Health, and Dan will tell us a little bit about himself. Dan, what do you do at Brandcast Health?
Yeah, very quickly. So I run Brandcast Health. We're a medical marketing and communications agency based in London, and our focus is really content strategy and delivery. And the reason I'm excited to talk about CRM is I think that if we want to build relevant content that creates trust between industry and healthcare professionals, then we need a really good CRM strategy. We need to understand the data, and we need to understand how to communicate with our customers in a really relevant way. I think that's where the most impact is going to be found. So that's a bit about me.
You rock. Thank you, Dan. Next one is Claudia. We met Claudia through Florent, the the Black Cardinal here, who knows everyone. Claudia, tell us about. So you've been with Boehringer before. What are you doing now with Belly Slide Consulting?
Yeah, so after 13 years in pharma, 8 in AstraZeneca, 5 in BI, I decided to embark on my own journey, and I set up this consulting firm called Belly Slide, which we are focusing on brand strategy, marketing strategy, and then the continuation of it into applying it into experience mapping, omnichannel planning, but also with a capability building support underpinning that, because my aim is not just to target big companies, but also medium to small companies. I'm intending to also work in LATAM if there's any LATAM viewers. So just to do a proper service to our clients and make sure that they are prepared to sustain whatever strategy we set up together. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Claudia. And we have the boss here, Florent. Florent is the SVP Global Head of Commercial Excellence for Grünenthal. And basically, we started this webinar because we actually had a really good chat on our podcast about generative AI, open AI, and all the stuff AI. And I was thinking that Viva is kind of lagging behind AI, and we connected a little bit earlier for this webinar, and Florent started complaining what a hard week he had, and one part of it was that you mentioned that you used analytics with the data you had, you used it with generative AI. Could you explain what did you do, what results did you have? We're trying to be practical here. Let's start with that.
Yeah, no, sure, with pleasure, and thanks for inviting me and to this great group. No, just as a background, I started in pharma quite some time ago, and I was guilty to spend $150 million to implement a CBEL infrastructure across a whole company. Just when we were finished rolling out this $150 million CRM, we destroyed it to replace it by another one. And so I've got an history of love and hate with CRM. And the one thing that is fascinating me is we have done in CRM across the industry hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in consulting, in licenses, in tools, in data, to create executive territory management systems by which we know when a rep goes to see a customer and what he does with the customer, but we know nothing actually about the customer. And the last thing we actually do is customer relationship management with the CRMs we have. And this is highly frustrating. And I think, learning from that and post-COVID going into an omnichannel world where our customers are what they are. They consume content across the web, across social media, across everywhere. You need all that data aggregated somewhere to be able to really understand your customers, pivot your strategy around the customer, and then actually do CRM. But the one thing we realized very rapidly is that without the help of tools like, the Einstein from Salesforce, or with some generative AI tools, the wealth of data you have to manipulate to be able to decide if Dr. Repin wants to have, an information on safety or efficacy. Well, you know what? It's amazing. It's huge. No human being can compute that. So that's why we are really thinking that adding a layer of AI on top of the existing data sets, as long as they are clean, is really the way forward to be able to interact nearly on a one-to-one basis with every single customer in the industry, which, if I remember well, is what we were promised the first time we implemented a CBEL. So it's a little bit about time, just like 15 years later.
we touched content a little bit. Then you wanna come up with your insight?
Sure. I mean, I'm totally aligned with all that. I mean, I think there's immense frustration from many people around, what the current CRM solution looks like. I think from my perspective as a marketing agency that's working mainly with marketers, and seeing how they use a CRM, and actually what I'm finding in most cases, I don't know about everybody who's watching, but in the most cases, it's used as effectively a call log for sales reps. There's nothing really more than that. I know that analytics are done, so get results and look at like sentiment on screens for like e-details and stuff like that, which tells you a few things, but it certainly doesn't do anything close to what most CRMs have been capable of for a very, very long time. And even years ago, we would be able to achieve much better things with automations and tagging and stuff that we simply don't do. So I think that on the conversation of AI, I think the first point is I think people don't understand the capability of their own CRMs right now. I think that's something that should be an absolute priority, is for people to understand that whether it's marketers and account managers, for example, understanding that there is strategy in designing a CRM. So if you know what you need to know about a customer, like your adoption ladder, their persona type, their interests, their objections, these should all be clear fields in the CRM that you're strategically putting in place for each brand, so that as that person interacts with, even just on a sales rep level, they're able to log those things down and have a clear distinction between different customer types that the marketing teams or medical affairs teams can then use in order to solve those problems or answer those questions on a mass scale. So that's the first thing that I think needs to be done. The second thing is considerations of those automations and actually integrating the CRM into things beyond Salesforce. So thinking about the websites, like having forms on your webinars that are connected to your CRM that allows customers to input data that you can then react to and create automations from. So there's loads of great information about that stuff everywhere. And I would recommend that any marketers, people in medical affairs, sales teams go and look at that just to get a baseline knowledge of it. The second hurdle is then it's quite complicated. There's so much stuff you can do. Trying to build those dashboards and out takes a professional, someone who understands the CRM deeply. And what we now have with AI, whether it's Einstein, like you mentioned, Florent, or something like with HubSpot, where you've got ChatSpot, all the CRMs were starting to develop these things, where instead of spending hours trying to figure out how to build a dashboard where you can just see who are your biggest product promoters and advocates, you can just ask, like via the chat, like ChatGPT, can you build me a dashboard that shows me these things? Can you show me which email subject headers work the best? Which sales team converts the most, etc. Which web pages generate the most leads for our sales team? All this kind of stuff without having to have that knowledge and expertise and training is pretty incredible. So you could have you wouldn't have to have an amazing knowledge of CRM in order to build that stuff out. But what I do think is critical is knowing the principles of CRM and inbound marketing in order to personalize, and like Florent said, to start to build relationships on an individual basis. Because if you don't even have that knowledge, you don't know what to ask the CRM to do anyway. So for me, that capability piece is super important. And maybe Claudia has some comments on the capability.
Excellent marketer here, by the way. So
yeah, well, excellent to hear all of that, because I don't disagree, nor I think there's a lot of detail to add to that. I personally also am amazed by, I've been reading a lot in the last few months in particular on AI and the potential of it, and it's definitely there, right? There's all these making the understanding easier, making the automating easier, and then making the optimization easier. Definitely. I feel some of the frustrations of Florent, and I have observed that as well, being kind of in the middle between sales, marketing, and how sometimes the CRM is not utilized to the best, mainly because there are disconnections in what we're trying to achieve and how we use it, and what data we want to even input or extract out of it, and then what do we do with this? And sometimes fair excuses on both sides, again, it's daunting, and people don't necessarily always have the time to invest in trying to even understand what's coming out of it. The one word of caution from my side, and whoever knows me would say, you know, I've always been a big champion of this. We need to be very careful on what we talk about when we say understanding. And the only thing that I'm going to say is data does not allow us to understand everything. And Florent was saying, right, CRM, I think the bit that has been missing is a relationship. Just before we went live, we were talking about this whole Latin American way of building relationships and how it's about actually very strong, very quick, personal, human connection, that human to human thing. And I think we just need to make sure that we don't let AI just lead the way and forget that we humans need to keep connecting with the humans, because without that deep understanding, that relationship piece will never really be built. It's going to be customer management, and not necessarily we're going to build very strong relationships. So massive, amplifier, definitely. We just need to make sure that we don't lose sight of what are the right questions we need to ask. What is this deep understanding that we're seeking to have of our customers beyond the behavioral data points? So I'll stop there.
So you're leaning more into data, basically, like how are we using data and sort of the disconnections, alignment between marketing and sales, and how do we use data? And Florent, do you wanna lead with this?
Yeah, no, I think that's totally right. I do see that we have, in average, in the commercial teams in the pharma industry, a lower level in terms of data and analytics than what we have in the R&D teams, for instance. The level of understanding of the maths behind is quite lower. The appetite to generate and to use data to create insights that are going to lead to the strategies is also lower, in a sense that pharma has been rich for quite some time. So pharma relies on market research, specialized agencies that do market research, qualitative, quantitative, what have you, that the marketeer, kind of drives, then they get the results, and then from there they find the shiny piece of stuff that will allow them to build a campaign and push a marketing message and shine in a board meeting and maybe get an award of the best campaign of the year at the end, and then they restart again. And in all that, if you think about it, there is nothing around the customer. There is nothing around the data on the customer and what we do for different groups of customers. And it's fascinating to see that this is probably coming from the initial trainings, but also from what made them successful when they were rewarded more for great campaigns and market share increase than for customer satisfaction and deepening the relationship with the customers. And that's just not judging, it's just an observation. I think it's, now that we are coming into an omnichannel world where market research, for instance, is very limited in terms of the visibility and the insights it can generate, we need to use bigger data sets. But to be able to use them smartly, the people need to understand how that's done, how you collect the data, how you create the data, how you collect it, how you clean it, how you govern it, and how you use it into building your insights and your strategies. And fundamentally, again, to come back to the topic of today, this is what CRM is supposed to be made for. But we've never used it this way.
Yeah, interesting. We've never used it this way. Although we sometimes wonder about the possibilities of the CRM, and I think with the introduction of generative AI, you will have way more insights, which you have more creativity, which is the basics of sales and marketing if you think about it, right? Go ahead.
So I think like these are like really good points, and my experience as well is this idea of using market research, which often is just the way that market research is positioned is product first. So rather than going backwards and looking at, say, customer satisfaction, like what's working well, what even from a tactical perspective, what is our best way to engage? What is it that's working? it's this idea that we have like a new strategic imperatives based on the competitors in the market. Everything's built off differentiators. So rather than what is the problem that we solve for the customer, it is how do we differentiate our product from our competitor. So what you end up with is this market research that's built on how people would respond and react to choice of product rather than understanding what the market problem is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to Claudia's point around the, you know, talking about relationships and you know, Gen AI will be useful. We are in a kind of dangerous situation. I see people, you know, looking at, you know, quoting things from like Medscape and Viva, right? And it's like doctors don't like interacting with pharma on their channels. They just don't like doing it. Or like, you know, Viva will say like digital content, you just need to produce more digital content on Viva e-details because it shows that if you have digital content, then you get more conversions. Like, but this is like, this data is true, but like it completely takes out the context of the personal interaction or what that content is. Like, surely the real impact is like, is that content valuable? And so for me, it doesn't matter what channel it is, like just because that's how it is now. If you're not looking at the customer needs and adding value, then they won't interact on any channel. I would say that if pharma produced something on their own channel and no one wants to interact with it, if they produce it on Medscape, does it suddenly make it good content? No, it's just the same. It's still rubbish, and they still don't want to interact. So if we do use Gen AI, I think it's important. Yes, it can tell us trends and it can give us information. Right now, some of that kind of personalized stuff that it might produce, you really do need those people on the ground to like take the insight from that and say like, well, I know this customer and this isn't like how I would talk to them and it isn't how I would respond to them. So just making sure that we don't lose the creativity and the insight at a strategic level, I think will be really, really key.
Yeah. And I would even add to your point, Dan, that is the understanding, and this is a beauty, I think, of the evolution of the industry. The healthcare system is going to force us into, we either do that or we die, because it's not only understanding the human. In the past, it was, let's understand the deep motivations, the challenges, the worries, whatever it is that we should have been asking those questions, right? Those fundamental questions, as opposed to, do you like this content? Was it nice? Now it's even in context, right? Because the healthcare system is getting more complicated. We're not talking even now a rep, right? You're talking the whole strategic account team trying to crack that system and trying to solve those problems so that then the drug can even exist. And having that understanding both at a deep level, but equally understanding this network of influences and whatnot, we were not able to do. I'm really hoping that AI is going to help us do, but we need to keep asking the right questions. And we need, to your point, yes, we do need to have the people on the ground understanding the customer and the customer in their context so they can feed that as well into the database. Because otherwise it's a bit of a superficial maybe kind of outcomes we're going to get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see like exactly that. I think some of the things that I would love to see, and I don't know. And Florent, you guys might be already starting to implement some of this stuff because I know that you've been working hard.
Let's
processes. Because things like, you know, looking at your levels of adoption and your different customer groups, and actually understanding, okay, where's the biggest commercial impact? So if we'd be better off spending our resource on this specific customer group that might expand use of a product rather than this customer group which might start using a product. Yeah. Being able to say to the Gen AI across multiple markets to say like, who are these customers? Mm-hmm. Where can they be activated? And what is the message that's been working across different markets, or what's the content that's been working that is moving them from that level of adoption to the next? That sort of insight at scale should be so powerful, because you could focus your marketing spend on that specific customer group in every different country, knowing exactly what the key message should be and the tactic that is going to have the most chance to overcome it. And then you use your people in your strategy and your people on the ground to really take that information and activate it. For me, there's the power, because all that wasted money on tactics that are just created for the sake of it or falls on deaf ears and nobody's interested, like can be gone. All that, there's a huge amount of waste, I think. And for me, that's something that could be very significant. I don't know, Florent, if that's something that that's the kind of thing you guys are looking at the moment, but
exactly. So that's, you have exactly framed the end picture of where we want to be. Are we there yet? not totally not, to be totally transparent, because getting there, we realized it was far more complicated than what we thought initially. So yes, we have high-level models that tell us if you have a commercial organization structured this way versus that way, this is how much you can generate in sales versus this is how much you can generate in sales. That's marketing mix models, that's multi-touch attribution and stuff like that. Those are statistical models that already require quite robust data set, good data scientists, and people in the business who understand the maths to be able to work with them. So we are at that level. But then, exactly to your point, we are like, okay, if we want to go to individual customer level to make sure we deliver the best possible interaction, we need to be able to drill down into the contents that those people are consuming and the feedback they give us. But when you open that Pandora box, you find a few things. The first thing is, I have not found anywhere on this planet and in any school anywhere, in university or whatever, someone capable of articulating how you create a content strategy. How do you define which content with which media you need to create to be able to satisfy your customer base? Like overall, like we got the cutler of marketing, right? That level of thinking, theoretical framework on how do you create your content strategy, because that would drive what you need to tag, what you need to record as information and all that. So how are we approaching it? I mean, we do the same, pivoting as physics has done at one point in time. We go experimental. So we are tagging what we can. We are putting the contents across all the channels. And then we are going to collect the interactions. We are going to collect the customer satisfaction. We are going to start using NBA from Einstein on Salesforce or other system to push a little bit of content to the customer to see how they respond to it. And then we give us a first idea of the positive impact we can have there. But by doing so, one single interaction between an HCP and a web page can be 6 to 7 to 10 content items that can be the trigger of something. So you imagine the volumetry suddenly of data that you have. And again, coming back to my previous point, I don't think any human being can process that volume of data. And this is exactly why we will need AI that is able to parse huge volume of data in a very short time to be able to generate, okay, you know what? This is standing out. For you to find why it is standing out, but at least I tell you, this piece of your content is resonating with oncologists that are above 55 and live below a line that goes from Paris to Switzerland. And that's what we need first to be able to educate ourselves. But it's we are not there yet. We expect to be there, but I think it's going to take us at least 12 to 18 months to get to that level.
Awesome. I like the part of the content. So the content was the content strategy, right? So Claudia, how would you do a content strategy? Okay. So there is a LinkedIn user saying, sure, a lot of content strategies based on trial and error. So testing PLS, video podcasts, and infographics across all the channels is the way to do it. That being said, there are, okay, I'm going to show it to everyone.
Yeah.
That being said, there are no AI tools to create draft content that need to be quality checked by media writers. I think media writers. This is the kind of solutions we are now introducing to the life sciences. Interesting. Would you see AI helping a lot in producing like better quality content? But I think the problem is not the content itself. You can create content, but if you don't know your customers, then goddammit, you won't create the best content ever, right?
Correct.
And we were discussing with Claudia the other day the fact that although you have all the generative tools you have in the world, right? Like you have OpenAI and so on. If you don't know the customers and you have to go through 15, you have to talk to the same person 15 times from legal who says today it's a yes, yeah, your content going to go through. Tomorrow he says no, it's not a good deal. This content is not good enough. Then AI is not going to help. So I think we have a people's issue here, not just an AI problem. Claudia, would you have a comment on this?
Well, I had actually a question for Florent, because on that topic, if you guys are so advanced, I'm just curious, how are you tackling the whole, and what conversations have you been having on approval process and whatnot? Because it feels like, yes, great, we're going to be personalizing everything, but we still, even if you power the review process, pre-reviews, so whatever you want to put in place, at the moment, at least in the UK, you have got a human that needs to be, at the end of the day, signing off. By the way, a human that is a freelancer in most instances, that their name depends on not having claims. We know the story. And you have that having to approve the final form of the content, so it's called, or whichever the variation of that. So I wonder how you guys are, what are you discussing around it, and how you're getting around that potential bottleneck?
Yeah, so completely right. And our thinking is to apply, the same medicine to this process and to power the legal, medical, regulatory approval process through AI. I mean, some companies are already doing it. Amgen, just to name them, is doing it. And there is a way by which you can make the life of the approvers so much simpler, because most of the content actually that we create is just a rehashing of an existing content. Let's be honest. I mean, someone who comes with a new study, a new ideas, a new graphic and stuff, it happens once in a while. Overall, it's just rehashing with better wording and stuff like that, or new imagery and things. So for all that, we can probably divide by 10 the time they need to review and approve, which would help us to produce 10 times more. So that's how to personalize it. And also, once they trust the system, if the declination between the various versions is just minimal but intended to satisfy a specific audience, they can approve in group or stuff like that. So we are working on that. That they were a very receptive audience, honestly, because no one ever does anything for those guys. They have the forgotten of the technology evolution. So they are happy that someone comes to them. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge. We know the volumes are going to increase. But I would like also to come back on Stefan's point, saying AI may not help us. I'm not sure, because one of the more we manipulate the Gen AI stuff, the more we see that it fine-tunes itself to the interactions it has with you. Which means if I am an HCP and I'm consuming content through a Gen AI interface, the content that will be offered to me in the future will be more and more attuned to what I like seeing. The format of the image, the length of the video, the topics that will be proposed to me, even the novlangue invented by the AI will correspond to what I'm responding. It's absolutely fascinating. I mean, I really, I don't know if I told you, I really got into Gen AI through my son, because he was playing with ChatGPT all the time, in school and stuff like that. And then I was like, come on, this is not real work. But he did an experiment. His idea was, I want to know if I can depress ChatGPT. He was having a very depressing discussion with ChatGPT and feeding the system only with Lana Del Rey lyrics. So everything the system would say, he would just drop, copy and paste Lana Del Rey lyrics. And you could see the structure of the system sentences and the tone going downhill in terms of upiness and stuff like that. And that was really interesting to see. The system is kind of self-adjusting to what you expect from it. And therefore, maybe it can have the patience that we humans don't have to adjust to every single one customer, at least for all the digital part. So maybe they can improve.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think there's a massive power on the tweaking, on the into Florence. Not to say even the minimizing mistakes or errors or whatever, but it's also the tweaking to the tone, to the little variations that perhaps we humans, to an extent, get tired and then may end up repeating even more often. I've used it a lot for my work. the optimization of time is remarkable. I do think, though, that essential work of us humans vetting the creativity level, even the essential key messages or whatnot that come out of our deep understanding still need to stay there. I don't think we need to just leave it to their own devices, but it definitely has got a lot of capacity to help.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a question from the audience, which is, how do you see Gen AI being used to analyze the data and predict the next conversation between the rep and HCPs? Also, what integrations do you think will be critical? Interesting question, right? Florent, you want to be the pioneer?
So yeah, prediction, I don't know, honestly. We are not there at that stage. We have kind of, statistical model. Can we call them really AI? I don't know. Like they are machine learning model and stuff like that. They help us do predictions, but it's very generic. It's very high level. Can you really use AI today to predict the human reactions? And you can anticipate that this is more likely than this, but really predicting is going to be difficult. So predicting the content of conversation, I mean, from all my field experiences, the conversation can be driven by the last interaction of an HCP with the last patient they met, and therefore could go completely unpredictable. That's always a challenge for the field teams to be able to re-engage the customer, answer their immediate need, and then re-engage them on the topic we wanted to discuss with them. So I don't know. Maybe one day that would be possible.
I would also build on that and say I just don't think it's necessary at the moment, because I would say before we worry about Gen AI telling us what conversation to have next, first let's worry about understanding how, like, even having the data captured within the CRM to even make that assumption ourselves. So I would probably say, I'm making assumptions here, but in many cases, most people who are watching or interested in this topic will have websites for their brands, and most of those websites will not be directly linked to the CRM, or most of the customer interactions when the customer comes on, it won't be tracking cookies or know who they are. So you don't even know what they're looking at on your website. And added to that, you probably don't even have that much content on your website. So most people will be focused on more of a brochure-based site where it's just the product data. If you actually want to know what the expert is interested in, you're also going to have some kind of content library where you've got people engaging on this. So it's just, again, thinking about the strategy. And when we talked about, is there someone who can build out a content strategy? The issue is that there's two different types. There's like your kind of business as usual, like you need to consistently attract people into conversations, and all the content there needs to be around your content niche. It needs to be relevant to your product, but more relevant to the customers, and not really about your product data and stuff. And that's where people will come and they will learn maybe medical education. Medical affairs are usually great at this type of job. Is like building interactions, webinars, showcasing guidelines, publication summaries, all that stuff around your content niche. If you're regularly producing that content, people will come to your channels. Only then is your CRM relevant, because before they come to your channels, it's not really that relevant unless they've already kind of signed up or subscribed, right? So at that point, if you have a sales team and if you've programmed an automation in your CRM so that when someone who is known to the website via cookies looks at, say, a white paper on the latest guidelines in your therapy area, that rep is tagged as their contact owner or in their territory, that rep should get an email to say, Dr. Repin has just downloaded the white paper on latest guidelines in whatever. You should probably have a conversation with them about that. You don't need a Gen AI to make that recommendation. So I think when we have that volume of content, then maybe it will be good at helping make recommendations, or maybe it would just be useful for the rep to type into the CRM rather than look at it and look at their alerts. Just type in who's interacted with content on any of our websites. So just prioritizing their list of customers to engage with, therefore increasing the chance of interaction. So for me, it's like that content journey building that into the CRM and understanding those critical interactions and having alerts to tell people what they should be maybe communicating next would probably be more relevant than, you know, if you've only got 12 Viva approved emails that you're allowed to send, why do you need an AI to recommend which one? You know what I mean? It's just, I think it will be super helpful when we get to the point of being able to have enough content and manage enough content. So maybe the first thing is for the AI to help us develop and manage that level of content before we need to use it to recommend where to go. I think where it will be even more useful, I know there's some companies, I don't know much about this, it's probably beyond my field of expertise, but where we're able to provide data on like where customers are interacting across many different channels and get insights into what papers they're reading and stuff like that. And the AI can then maybe recommend what type of content marketing you should produce to attract them. That's more interesting to me, because that would be pretty cool from a marketing perspective as well, like being able to know what should we produce next based on what are people interacting with outside of our sphere of influence. That would also be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's typically the difference you have between how people use Viva and how people use Salesforce. Like in Salesforce, we got all those information. We can segment the customer in the customer data platform on 250 dimensions. So it's easier to be able to get to that level, where on Viva, people are focused on next best action for the rep. So we did that back in AstraZeneca in 2015 in Japan. It worked. The reps liked it when it was just, you know, you go to that hospital and there's a doctor you've not seen. Yeah, you should drop a meeting in the calendar and then you should try to see him, because the rep could understand it, so they liked it. But it didn't go, you know, really beyond that. That was a nice helping tool and nothing more than that. Absolutely. But you know, the one thing, you know, to come back to what you were saying and what Claudia was building on in terms of capabilities, we have in the US alone around 150,000 sales reps in the pharma industry. Every single one of those reps make around 8 calls a day, right? Let's say 8 calls a day. Mm-hmm. So over a year, we have about 220 to 240 million interactions with customers where we could ask a question, record the information in a system, and use that to enrich the net customer experience. Imagine the power of that. But it's not built in the DNA of our marketeers to use such data set and such tools, because no one, to Claudia's point, has ever trained them on that and told them this is now available for you, in the same way that very, very few of them scan social media to understand what is actually happening in the real world, and they use the flag of, you know, risk of, you know, bad usage of the drug as, okay, we shouldn't look at that. They are like doing the ostrich, you know, the head and the sand, ignoring the world outside. And I think that's where we can help those people become better. They do it in FMCG. There is no reason why we shouldn't be doing it in healthcare.
Yeah, 100%. And there's so much potential, Florent, even in that. And we did do some exercise similar to that in BI, but it was more for training. But the listening to the interactions and learning from that is so powerful. The challenge is, though, and again, without wanting to open a Pandora box, but there's so many cultural challenges in pharma and the way we operate in the eternal, how do I name this? In the eternal, not fight, but, you know, rivalry, if you like, or frictions between marketing and sales. And now listen to that. Does that mean that, you know, are you listening to me, or are you trying to learn about the customer? And until this customer relationship management is owned by everyone, and we understand that this is a cross-functional effort, and hopefully AI is going to help us connect the dots as well internally, because again, when the complexity is there, it takes a team to figure it out.
Yeah.
But there's so much of that as well, right? It's not that I don't know how to use it. There's a lot more than I don't know how to use it that is preventing me from using tools like that.
Yeah, and it is a box, but like the collaborative part of it is really important. And I think I mentioned earlier on, talking about like it's important to understand CRM capabilities and build that into your strategy for marketing. But part of that strategy should also be how that CRM and the content that you've created as a marketer supports your sales force in driving things home. Like I created a video like a few months back with just some basics on CRM. Like if you're a marketer, this is how you can build your adoption ladder or objections into your CRM. This is how you should think about it. And actually, this is how it's relevant to your sales team who are actually trying to convert things for you. And actually, if you allow them to help you design that, they're going to tell you what the key questions are and objections are. You're going to be able to log that in your CRM. You'll be able to put that into your capture forms on your websites and things like that. So, you know, I think it has to be a collaborative effort. And then even, I know, like, then you talk about medical affairs. And to be honest with you, medical affairs have some better values in some areas of this. And I know there's question marks over how data should be shared and how we should interact. But at one point, like, we've talked about top of funnel content marketing. We've talked about the sale, talked about the middle, but we haven't talked about customer growth and expansion. And maybe there, it's like somebody wants a fellow medic, a clinical person to ask questions and challenge like how to solve an adverse event or whatever else. Then why can't medical affairs be that, that person? So it's like, how can they be part of this process as well, and make sure that their content is tagged and that everybody is working together around a customer goal. Like the customer is moving through and it should be touched at every point by the right people, by the right content. And I think that's the thing for me that's missing. And I think when people realize that nobody's fighting against each other, everyone is commercial to an extent. Everyone's trying to drive a customer from least value to most value. And everyone, if they have the right values and why they're working in this industry, is trying to generate good impact for patients. So just because you're trying to market a drug doesn't mean, you're trying to sell it. And just because you're in medical doesn't mean that you don't care about the bottom line of your business. I think that mentality has to change. And then the power of AI is going to be even better, because we're going to spread all the work that everyone's doing is going to be captured, and insights are going to be generated. Who should interact with this customer based on this question? Well, we've seen that if there's an MSL interaction, it's actually better than having an account manager come in at this stage. So from now on, medical, you should take on this side of the customer journey. Would be really cool. But I think just that fundamental understanding first of the capability you already have in your hands, the automations you can produce through Salesforce and stuff, the plotting out your adoption ladder, tagging your content, tracking objections, knowing what persona a customer is. If the marketing and sales team have an understanding of that, then this is going to be great. As I said, I've done a video on this, and people go to brandcasthealth.com/resources. There's a video that's called something about how CRM is the key to understanding omnichannel. It's like 8 minutes of your life. It's what I would consider fundamentals, but I think for some people it will just open their eyes to the capabilities. Once you've got that mindset, now you start marketing different. You start working with your sales team different. I think these are really important points to cover.
And I love that you. Sorry, go on.
Go, Claudia.
No, I just was going to comment on it, and perhaps a little bit more philosophical, but your point on the alignment, because at the end of the day, we're all there for the patient. And I think sometimes we forget and we call it commercial, like if it's a dirty word, and you could even remove it. If you just make it truly patient-centric, automatically becomes customer-centric, and then automatically we're all aligned behind the same goal. We're all in here for the same reason, no matter what function you belong to. It should be one plan, should be one system in which we try to understand how do we remove those barriers for ultimately the drug, which we believe is good for the patients, get to the patients. And, that can benefit from that.
But I wouldn't say AI is a silver bullet to solve the human problems inside the enterprise, inside the company, right? But it can help.
No.
So if you go to those people, like medical, and you ask them, who owns the customer? They will tell you, I own the customer, because the customer is a medic like me. I'm the one best place to understand him, and I'm the best place to talk to him. Then you will go to the marketeers, and they will tell you, I own the customer, because I'm creating the customer journey end to end, and I drive them along the journey toward the adoption of the product. And then you go to the sales team, and they tell you, I own the customer. I'm the only one who makes sense to them. I'm one talking to them every day. So you know what? But what AI can do is what we've done in one of the exercises on the training is you dump your data on your fake product. You can create a custom GPT in GPT-4, right? You dump your elements on your fake product into it because it's still public domain, so you don't want to dump your internal data into it. But you do that, and then you ask a chat GPT can you tell me which are the most likely eligible HCPs to be interested by that product based on their patient pool and stuff like that. The system is going to tell you, so you have this type of specialist, you can then ask it country by country, and you will see that given the healthcare system are different, you will have different types of doctors in the target. Then you can ask the system, can you create an education curriculum for those HCPs so that they go from knowing nothing about the therapeutic area and the product to their expert, and the stuff is going to do it. Then you can ask, okay, can you give me, based on my product profile, what would be the key differentiator versus the competitors, and what would be the key message we need to include? And then you can go down to the leaflet that someone could be using. And if you do that exercise in a cross-functional team, at the end of the day, everyone is, holy shit, we are all in it together. You know? And that's really what matters. And that's where, for me, AI may not be a solution, but it can be a catalyst to make this thing happen.
100%. And the bit of the data at the beginning, Florent, is the bit that will force us to come together, right? Because without the data being all in one place, there's no game. So we have to work together or not, or die. Or die.
That's the Latin American side of Claudia.
But it's true that in the next 5 years, fast forward or whatever, whoever's not on that bus, in this bus, is not going to probably be here to tell the story. So we do need to get together, and it's great. That's what I am more excited about. It's forcing us to solve some of the cultural underlying issues.
I'm going to steal it from you, Claudia. My next tagline will be AI do or die.
It turns out that we need a robot to help us be more human. That's the
no. We need to stay there. This is a companion. This is a very clever companion. I do not think it should 100%. Remove our thinking.
We have a question from the audience. So Jules is saying that you talk a lot about cross-functional collaboration within sales, marketing, and also other departments to holistically optimize personalized engagement with HCPs. So my question would be, how far are we actually in that area to align people and in large enterprises all across cross countries? Who's brave enough to take this question?
I think that has been the journey everyone has been trying to go on. It's just that, it's not that easy. It's human beings we're talking about here. Human beings with legacy attitudes to, what does it mean to collaborate? Being frankly as well, there's other things that you need to solve in order to 100% enhance that collaboration. Incentives being one of that, recognition. I mean, we talked about so many things. And but I do think, though, that we have come a long way if I compare to, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. But it's a journey. I don't think we are 100% there. Florent seems to have more of a hold of it, but in Grünenthal. But I think everyone's trying, and I think everyone is conscious of that being a goal and being a challenge that we have.
Claudia, I think that where you touched on like incentives and things, I don't think that's the answer, but I do think objectives, incentives, performance reviews and stuff is something that does need to change in order to allow people to do this. Because if when there's vanity metrics around sales and MSLs and stuff like that, having to get X number of meetings and stuff, like why would you share information about a customer with the marketing and the rest of the sales team if that's going to just result in your competitive advantage being removed? So like that kind of thing. And again, it's like, I think you said it around the switch in mindset. If you start to think our goal is the impact to the patient rather than selling the product, then you start to think a bit differently. And then maybe people's incentives are different, people's objectives are different. And then you get less competitiveness between functions, like the way budgets are distributed, things like that, that I don't know. I've not worked in the pharma, so I don't know, but I do know people worry about that and complain about it. Just little things like the idea that if you don't use all your budget one year, then you don't get that budget the next year. So then people just throw budget at agencies, and I've been there, and it's great for business, but it's a waste of money. You know, just, oh, we'll just do this project, so I need to use my budget by the end of the year. That kind of thing, to me, for a company that makes healthcare products for patients, why don't you just use that money on trying to help a hospital in your region make a new test center or something? You know, I don't know. I just think it's like, if the goals were different and what you were measured on is different and how you received budgets was different, then maybe you would take a different approach to strategy, and there would be a more alignment between the functions.
Yeah.
So on this one, it took us a whole reorganization and a lot of focus of the management team, and a lot of repeating the message, rewriting the job description, recreating the standard operating procedure and all that, to be able to get to a good level of alignment. Are we there all down the way? I'm not sure. And what I know is that, you know, if you take the global teams, yes, the people are aligned and we're collaborating together. We were this week on a team meeting with all the global commercial functions, and you could feel the one team, one crowd spirit, and everyone in the same direction. We also have that in the leadership teams in our different countries. We can feel it, see it when we go there. It's not always happening at field level, because also one of the things we have realized is that every single company I have been working in or working with under-invest the onboarding process of the people. So you will take a marketeer from somewhere else, dump him in or her in the organization, and they will start to behave like their originating organization and not the culture you want to have in your own company. Because there is no onboarding process where you tell them, no, in our company, this is how we do things, right? There is no marketing plan, medical plan, market access plan. There is one asset plan and beginning of life to end of life of the product, and we all contribute equally to it. There is no specific stuff, and I think it takes time, and we are working right now on that onboarding, because every time we have people joining the company, they need to understand how we collaborate. And I've not seen a lot of great onboarding programs out there. Maybe that's a business to create.
Okay, going back to the initial question. So we covered that. We covered basically alignment in between different departments, because at the end of the day, everyone owns the customer. You know, sales owns the customer, marketing owns the customer, medical owns the customer, and nobody actually owns the customer, if you know what I mean, right? So because if there are many people who own the customer, at the end, who's the one who says, well, the sentiment is negative, they're not going to work with us, or we haven't delivered on our promise, right? Is it sales who's going to say that, or it's going to be marketing, or whoever? So I think it's very important to have one person being actually one department being actually responsible for the engagement, we're having the most important say in what comes to talking to customers, to the final customer. So we discussed data. We discussed the fact that there is analytics that we would like to use. What other, going back to AI and CRMs, what are maybe some efficient ways, looking in the future, like what are some efficient ways we could use AI with a CRM? What would you guys foresee in the next maybe year or two that AI could really help? AI inside CRM, let's say Vivo or IQVIA or Pitcher, would help us to use it better and having better insights and so on.
If I was to say one thing that that would be very helpful, one thing for me would be building customized dashboards without having the expertise of knowing how to build those dashboards in a CRM, without having to spend it on that. Being able to answer a question that you have to help you develop your marketing strategy. In my world, that would be the most powerful thing. And my point about, like, you know, knowing which customer target has the most commercial impact for the brand, and being able to pull reports on what people are doing, which tactics to use, and all that stuff. Having those dashboards that you could reflect on a monthly basis, which I don't think people are doing. People aren't looking at their CRM dashboards and using that to influence what they do next if they're not in sales. I don't think they're doing that very often. That would be very powerful for me, because it would help us as an agency to make really great, relevant recommendations for our clients. So I'd like to see that that capability move forward, and I think it's possible that will happen in it's probably possible now with some AI and some CRM integrations.
Florent, what do you think? What would be useful for you?
So as global, head of Comex, my dream is that tomorrow this system, I come in the morning, take my coffee and I chat with it, and I ask the system, what happened yesterday, right?
How's it going?
And the system tells me, you know what, you have this part of your content that has been consumed that seems to be interesting. I would suggest to expand it to this group of customers because they could be responsive. Or you have this part of your marketing mix that actually is not delivering as it should be. You need to reconsider and change maybe the messaging, or try this versus that. No. I would like, as Claudia was saying, I need a copilot. I need someone who's going to look at all that wealth of data and make sure that I don't need to look at the dashboard. I don't want to look at the dashboard. I want to talk to someone, even if it's an AI, that's going to look at the data for me and tell me, what I should be doing. Like, the next step in my Tesla is for me to tell my Tesla, I want to go to Aachen, and it drives me to Aachen. Right now, I can say, I want to go to Aachen, and it draws the stuff, and I still have to drive. And I'm frustrated. I still have to drive.
Yeah.
I
couldn't agree more. I think that complementary view of our understanding, without substituting, by the way, the deepest bit of it, that we need to keep feeding into the system and keep gathering ourselves, is the most critical bit. Because once you understand, then you can do, right? Then you can do different things. And then we're thinking about AI, obviously, put somewhere else so they can help us, obviously, on the automation of content and create more content and personalize and optimize and all the rest of it. But if you don't have that holistic, everything in one place, and by the way, once we put it all in one place, we're going to want to cry or run away if it depends on us to actually make sense of it. That's where I think the power of AI is.
Awesome. So we're at the top of the hour almost. Any closing testimonials, guys, from any of you?
No, I would just react on the last post in the flow. Someone is saying that they like the future of pharma with CRM, but they would not want to drive the Tesla with AI. That's kind of the deep why Elon Musk is Elon Musk and I am who I am. Now we got Elon Musk plugging onto our neurons, and with all due respect, I would not want Elon Musk plugged into my neurons.
It's like there must be some hardcore marketers who actually really want to do all that data analytics, and they'll be annoyed if they've got an AI doing it for them. That's what they live for, like the driver. I don't know. I don't think there is any.
I'm not sure even the data and analytics team would say no, thank you. They'll say yes, thank you. Because I do think the way I think about it is like it can do the analysis so that we can do the thinking with it, as opposed to us spending 99.9% of the time doing the analysis, and then there's no time for the thinking because we're just overwhelmed. So I do want to drive in your Tesla, Florent. So when you're ready, tell me and I'll go and have a ride. Happy to have coffee or some chat in the morning.
I think I would also just, say a message of like, I think it is very exciting and there's a lot of possibilities. I think I would just plead with people like, first, understand what CRM can do and its capabilities and how you can build that into your marketing strategy. Understand that and then start to explore what the possibilities with AI, because then you'll really understand what can happen with AI if you understand what can happen now. I think maybe too many people at the moment just leave that to like an internal function thing, like someone else deals with the CRM. I don't need to think about it. My advice is like, once you really understand it, it's going to completely change your perspective to marketing. It certainly did for me. So that's my recommendation. Look at and understand your CRM and what it can do now.
Yeah, Mine would be on that line, Dan, that clarity of what you're trying to achieve is critical as well. And that applies to the metrics we're using now, which sometimes are not perfect. And sometimes it is because they're not really linked to the strategy. Sometimes they are vanity metrics, useless metrics, whatever metrics. So make sure that whatever it is that you're going to put in place, perhaps start little if you can, but with a very clear intent in mind. Otherwise, it's just an experiment that probably is going to prove that it doesn't work. And it's not because it doesn't work. It's because it was set up wrong.
Very true.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Florent. We are ending our webinar for today, but we will continue our webinars in February. Again, so please do follow Dan, Claudia, and Florent. They're very active on LinkedIn. And I'll see you guys again, hopefully at the end of the year.
Super.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.